Cheyenne MacDonald. So as Don had introduced me, I'm the Agriculture and Climate Manager with the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. I work with Troy with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So I've been there for a few years now. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the way climate is impacting traditional knowledge, our Mi'kmaq calendar, a little bit about, I missed Troy's, his first few minutes, so I hope I don't cross over too much of his information, but talk a little bit about the non-timber forest products cooperative business we've been developing at the CMM as well, and a couple other things when we get the presentation up. I'm a member of Sabaganagdi in Shibenacadie, so I'm a Shibi band member. I grew up in Enfield though, so that's a little bit of background about me. I have a Bachelor of Science from Dal AC in agriculture, so that's a little bit about my educational background as well too. So I worked in climate adaptation when I first started at CMM, and then got into forestry a little, but went back to my background of agriculture and climate, and now I am leading those projects. Are we good to go? Good to start? Yep, okay. Perfect. Sorry about that. So sorry everyone, I should have brought a flash drive clearly, but it's year end at our organization and we've been extremely busy, so thank you guys for your patience of us getting that set up. So as I mentioned, this is who I am, and this is the long word that Dawn mentioned that I am not going to attempt right now. But that is Nipuktuk underneath that big word, so which means gifts from the forest. So I don't know how much Troy went into this, but the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq is a tribal council who serves the 8 mainland Mi'kmaq communities. If you don't know where they are here in that red circle there. And there are the following communities there on the left side, and they are numbered, so you can find this on Google. So we have departments of health, legal, history, culture, economic development, and our environmental department. So I'll just go over that really quickly, but that's who we are. Our organization is guided by the following Mi'kmaq principles. The first one is Edawaktabunk, or two-eyed seeing, which refers to the learning from seeing one eye with the strengths of indigenous knowledges and the ways of knowing, and from looking through the other eye of the strengths of Western knowledges and the ways of knowing, and learn to use both of these eyes together for the benefit of all. This concept was originated by Elder Albert Marshall from Eskazoni. And the second would be Niduglamik. Troy probably said this word as well, but the Mi'kmaq word for environmental sustainability, or to take gifts from the earth the Creator has given without compromising the earth's resources for our future generations, or in very short, I like to say, taking only what we need and leaving enough for the next 7 generations. As I mentioned, we have been building a Mi'kmaq non-timber forest products cooperative business at the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. We started developing this about 3 years ago. We are almost in completion now. It is looking like it's going to be completed in June of this year. But this is the lovely logo that Loretta Gould did from Unama'ki. For our developing business. The tagline to the business is Mi'kmaq made in Mi'kma'ki using Mi'kmaq traditions. So this business was developed for Mi'kmaq crafters and artisans, or people who focus on non-timber forest products, which could even be things like honey, wooden baskets, cultural products, and many other things. So I'm going to get into the logo a little bit more and what the logo represents. So, as you can see here, the two people are sharing knowledge. It's an elder and a youth that are sharing knowledge between each other. The passing of the shell represents the passing of knowledge. If you see the tree branch, it comes up into 7 branches, representing the next 7 generations and looking forward to them. In the ground, we have the faces of our ancestors and how those are tied to us and how they are tied to us, and then going into the next 7 generations and how we're continuing that knowledge through. Mi'kmaq are part of the Wabanaki Confederacy, if anyone knows about that. However, the Wabanaki Confederacy and we are called the people of the dawn. So that's a dawn moon behind the 2 people kneeling, and the significance of them kneeling is also that connection to the earth. I think I got everything there. So opportunities with non-timber forest products, which I did hear Troy briefly touched on. I'm just talking in a little bit of a different perspective from the business side than his forestry operations side. But looking at opportunities where this business could go, could be foraged edibles, additional forage products, wooden crafts, forest nurseries, ecotourism, and cultural tours, and things of the sort. With the business development project, through the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, we actually put on a ecotourism training. So we did wilderness first aid, we did Outdoor Council of Canada's hiking guide certifications, we did Paddle Canada's paddle guide certifications. So we have Mi'kmaq community members from across mainland that are now trained to give tours. We did a mushroom identification course, we did a plant identification course, we did a shiitake mushroom farming course. So we now have also community members from across mainland Nova Scotia who have their own shiitake mushroom logs that they can start growing this year, because from my knowledge they grow in the second year, so that will be this year, so they'll be coming. So those are a couple of the opportunities that we gave. A good agricultural collection practices course as well, which allowed some of our community members to wild harvest and then be able to sell to larger wholesale buyers. So those are a couple of the opportunities we already presented with the cooperative. However, now we're looking at different opportunities for the cooperative. We have 34, I also lead the MUSME project, which is in our agriculture branch. And last year we established 34 new beehives across mainland Nova Scotia as well. So those beekeepers, if they would like to start producing honey on a commercial scale, they have the opportunity to be part of this cooperative as well too. At Christmas time, we were able to go to Christmas at the Forum, and so actually we had one of our beekeepers, Amanda Dugas, you can find her on Facebook as Dugas Honey, or Dugas Bees, and I recommend everyone look her up. But last year we had honey from her hive, and it was near some raspberry bushes, so it came out with a beautiful kind of berry taste. She sold her honey at the Christmas at the Forum in December, did wonderful. Amanda Brooks of One Crafty Mi'kmaq, she sold her products as well, did really well. And we had Lauren Julian selling his artwork and a couple other people selling as a cooperative model out of the Christmas at the Forum. We also went to the Medland Community Forest Market and had a couple other online markets as well for the cooperative and helping people to sell their products. So the importance of non-timber forest products in Mi'kmaq culture and traditions. So I don't have my notes in front of me, so my apologies, I'm going to do it the best I can. But as many of you may know, many of these non-timber forest products are products for our ceremonies, products for medicines, food products, for sustainability purposes. So impacts to these greatly impact passing on knowledge or the sharing of knowledge or being able to perform our ceremonies if we don't have the resources that we need to perform them. So I'm going to get into two larger impacts of non-timber forest products, which are climate change and invasive species. So to start going over climate change, I have a lot of slides and not a lot of time, even though I talk fast, as you guys can all tell by now. But I'm not going to get into each month too much because it'll take us a long time. But anyone can reach out to me. I have all this information. We did a calendar with Gerald Glode, so I worked with him to get a lot of this information that was put in our calendar. So if you guys are ever interested in this information that's up here on the screen, please don't hesitate. I'll put my number and email at the end of the slide. You can get some of these information of what our Mi'kmaq calendar, our Mi'kmaq moons look like, and what that signifies in our environment to us. But to go over really briefly, so the wintertime moon comes first. It's known as the Great Moon. It's when the full moon is the longest in the sky, or the full moon is the longest full moon in the sky. During this time, 16 hours between morning and night, and therefore the moon looks bigger and brighter during that month, and that's why it's called the chief or wintertime moon. Then during January, February time is the Tom Cod, which we have here, moon. It's the time of the year where the Tom Cod is spawning, and then there's another fact there, how Mi'kmaq would walk along the shoreline of the river to pick the fish up that were washed up from when the ice would break and would flood over the river banks. Nipuktuk is during February and March. That's the time of the year when the snow is incredibly blinding. It's also called the Snow Blinders Month, Sun Blinders Month, either or. Getting into spring, so we have our springtime spawning moon, is known as the maple sugar time. And there's us doing a Gourmet by Nature workshop, doing a tree tapping Gourmet by Nature workshop there. I also recommend looking up their group, Gourmet by Nature, if anyone isn't familiar with them, as they're a great group as well. And then we have the egg laying moon during April, May, where birds collect materials such as twigs and grass to build and repair their nests in preparation for laying their eggs this month. Then we have the frog croaking moon coming in May, June. It's the time of year where you can hear the peepers and the bullfrogs. There's summertime, so the trees fully leaf moon or the summer moon, and so Nibi means leaves, so Nibi Nagoose is how you say the trees fully leaf moon. I love this fact that traditionally during the time Mi'kmaq did not enter the waters for recreational purposes during this moon, believing that this time was when animals should use the water. They should wait until the first lightning strike after the full moon in July before returning to the water, to allow the animals time to breed and reproduce. So this was a way of thought for us. Then we have the bird shedding feathers moon in July, August. Berry ripening and berry and fruit ripening moon in August, September, which is my favorite. Anyways, and then we have during September, October, the moose calling moon, animal fattening moon in October, November, and the river freezing moon in November, December. So why I went over those mostly is because talking about climate change impacts to the Mi'kmaq calendar. So climate change is bringing about environmental changes within Mi'kma'ki, and therefore changing the Mi'kmaq calendar. So one example I can give you guys is during November, during the river freezing moon that I had just mentioned. The rivers don't necessarily freeze during that time anymore. So, the bird shedding feathers moon is another one that is, the birds aren't necessarily all shedding their feathers like they used to traditionally during that time anymore. So these are impacting Mi'kmaq bioindicators as well. So one example of a Mi'kmaq bioindicator is when maple buds are formed on the trees, we know that it's time to fish the rivers. So with the change in these bioindicators, it is creating a barrier to that traditional knowledge of us knowing our environment and knowing how to use our environment during those times. So impacts of the bioindicators it's not only a cultural barrier, but also creating impacts of species distributions, habitats, and as well as creating a difference in habitat distributions for invasive species, as we know. As I mentioned, climate change is also impacting non-timber forest products, or the accessibility that we have to our non-timber forest products, and directly impacting our access to traditional foods and medicines, and our ability to practice culture and traditions, and passing knowledge down to the next 7 generations. So as you can see from these graphs, these are the species distribution. So green is where species is found now, or species is found, and then white is where it will no longer be coming in the future years. You can see this is the 2041-2070 projection here at the end. So this is balsam fir. This is white spruce. And then this is black ash. So how we are adapting to invasive species here in Mi'kma'ki, I have a couple examples that I think are pretty neat. But we are looking, as Troy may have mentioned in his presentation, but looking at different materials that we could use for traditional products. As some traditional products, some traditional materials aren't so available as they used to be. So looking at potentially using different kinds of woods, different kinds of plants, different kinds of other resources so that we can be adaptable and be adaptable and resilient to climate change. The Mi'kmaq Conservation Group, or DARFM, now is as it's called, so our Department of Aquatics Resource and Fisheries Management. They came out with a cookbook for cheating pickerel not too long ago. That was really neat. So, if you want to combat invasive species, maybe just eat them if we can. So I love that idea. And that goes also into Sipekne'katik has a fishing derby as well too, and so that's the same type of a thing, is where we pick out invasive species from the fishing derby as well. So this is the one slide I needed my notes for. So unfortunately, I'll just go over this really quickly, but there's species at risk work being done at the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. Within DARFM, as I mentioned earlier, they have a couple species at risk projects, river restoration. And then now within our department, we have the Indigenous Protected and Conserved Areas Project, the Indigenous Land Guardians Project. We've had an ongoing WISCO project and an ongoing Mainland Moose project that is now completed, but that went really well. I want to show you a video that was produced out of that project, which was really sweet. So I don't know if we can press play. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to show you guys this video. It's about a minute long, if it'll work. Good. Okay. All right, that's good. So I will tell you guys to go visit it. So it's it's on YouTube. It's about a minute long, as I mentioned. It's called Mainland Moose. Mainland Moose. Troy, do you know the exact title? Mainland Moose, the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. Like I said, it's about a minute long. It's narrated by Clifford Paul. He's from Unama'ki as well, but it talks about, there's some really neat information that a lot of people don't know about where the mainland, the mainland moose, how they're being impacted, and the new species that was brought to Unama'ki, and how that has impacted the mainland species, and how the impact to our mainland species is impacting our culture, and what tools we use out of the mainland moose that are traditional products. So sorry I couldn't play that, because it is actually really interesting, and I would rather an elder give that information than I. So please go look at that when you get a chance on YouTube. Like I said, it's about a minute long. So I'm just going to go over really quickly some of the black ash conservation work that we do at the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. So WISCO, black ash, occurs from western Newfoundland to eastern Manitoba. It inhabits forested wetlands, riparian areas, and floodplains. It's ranked as threatened in Nova Scotia, with 1,000 individual trees left, estimated. Where it's abundant, it's an important part of the forested wetland ecology. So threats to black ash is overharvesting, habitat loss, disease, climate change, and invasive species or invasive insects. So like the emerald ash borer, so this is a picture of this impacted tree here. Challenges to conserving WISCO in Nova Scotia is that it's a slow-growing tree. It only produces seed once every 8 years. It often occurs in remote areas with challenging terrain. It's difficult to identify in the field. Troy mentioned white and black ash. There's a few different types of ash. It can be difficult to identify if you don't know what you're looking for. Highly susceptible to deer browsing. We had planted a whole stand in Sipekne'katik, and within a couple of years the whole stand was wiped out because the deer just came in and ate them all. So we had some fattened up deers, luckily, but that's unfortunately lost our trees. And then weather variability impacts fertility, low public access or awareness to emerald ash borer as well too. So this is the emerald ash borer here. He's a pretty little guy, pretty little bugger. And so they're native to Asia, introduced to North America around 2002. Found in 5 provinces. It's 99% fatal after just 3 to 4 years of infestation. It spreads through the movement of infested firewood and other wood products, and it can spread up to 1 kilometer per year naturally. So this is an example of a street that was impacted by emerald ash borer June 2006, and by the time of August 2009 came, this is what it looked like. So work we're doing to conserve Wisco at the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq is conducting surveys to document previously unrecorded black ash and submitting occurrence data to the ACCDC, collecting seeds from reproductive trees and submitting them to the National Tree Seed Center, creating plantation sites to establish the tree in new protected areas, using surveys and traps to monitor the spread of EAB, which is, here's an example in that picture here. Facilitating public outreach events to raise awareness of black ash and emerald ash borer. And then again, this is not going to work, unfortunately, this video, I'm sure. But there's another video, I believe this one's called Wisco Black Ash on YouTube. This one's quite a bit longer. I think it's, maybe even almost about an hour. But it does also go into cultural significance of black ash. There's community members, there's elders speaking about black ash, there's basket makers on here. One is now passed, so this is a very special video to us now, especially. But please go on and look if you have time to look at the Wisco Black Ash video on YouTube as well. And so ecological significance to black ash is that it provides a habitat for a number of other species, including insects, birds, and amphibians. 9 additional species at risk were documented occurring with black ash in 2018. Black ash seeds and leaves provide food for birds, deer, moose, frogs, beetles, and moths. And black ash roots prevent soil erosion. Leaves provide canopy cover in marshes and along streams. So, as I mentioned, Wisco black ash baskets are a product of art and sustain many Mi'kmaq families during times of hardship. Historically, they're used in commercial items like hockey sticks, baseball bats, snowshoes, furniture, canoe ribs, and baby cradles. Traditionally, it's also used in cultural and ceremonial items like the jigamahan, which is a musical instrument, and splint baskets. And then tourist market exists for Mi'kmaq and ash splints today. And this was one of the reasons that the cooperative was developed. So progress to date at the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq is CMM has successfully established black ash plantations at 8 sites with 2 more being planted. Now I had mentioned what happened to some of those sites. So that was established, but not all of those were successful. Thousands of seeds representing 6 isolated strands have been collected and sent for long-term storage. Over 100 previously undocumented black ash trees have been identified and protected from incidental harvest. And a better understanding of how to grow black ash has been developed, allowing for increased success with plantations and locating new trees. And so that brings us to a conclusion. But like I said, I'll keep my email, that's our office number, up there if anyone has any questions. I know I went over things kind of fast today, especially because I didn't have my notes in front of me, so I went off the top of my head. But yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything you think of after the conference that you have any questions about anything that I talked about or anything else you think that I can help you with, and that'd be great.